Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to Professor Conroy. How are you today?
I'm very well indeed today. Thank you, Phil. And how are you?
Yeah, excellent. Thanks. Obviously, we just saw the RNS released, which is obviously great news on all resolutions passed. It seemed like it was an overwhelming majority as well that voted.
Absolutely overwhelming, and a lot of people, including some of the larger shareholders, there in person to be present at it. So it was a very pleasant occasion. As you can imagine, a very nice atmosphere. It has been so much for the company. We've been coming towards this for several years, but now we've actually reached this point. So it's a very nice feeling. But obviously, it had to be ratified by the shareholders as a whole. And it's great to see the absolutely overwhelming majority and pleasure and support indeed. And we move into a whole new era for the company now as we move forward. There's tremendous opportunities for us to develop.
Talk us through obviously there is certain outstanding conditions that I think we also alluded to on the last interview regarding the different regulatory approvals. Talk us through what the next stages are then of sort of getting the JV fully approved, and then the next steps in terms of money coming into the company on phase one, and then obviously, sort of boots on the ground, I guess, from the joint venture partner. Well,
the framework agreement is in actual fact already it's agreed already, and wording and so on. But there's some of the ancillary agreements, which again, it's just a question really of wording. And then from the point of view of the actual agreements, that's all completed. And now that we have the approval of shareholders, we can move to the actual formal signing. So it's a major stage today in the process of that. But then obviously there has to be governmental approval from the government in Ireland and from the Northern Ireland government and various regulatory matters like that. And in actual fact, we're quite well advanced with them as well. But at the same time, they all have to be ticked off as it were, and we'll go through that process. But really, we're looking forward now to, first of all, the formal signing of the agreement, and then to announcement that the various regulatory authorities have given their approval, but most of all, to starting to make arrangements for the actual execution of the program. It'll be a very major program now. We have been working hard, not only on doing work during the last year, completing drilling and so on, but also now in the planning going ahead. And we'll be going ahead with a much augmented drilling program, because now we're doing a drilling program, on the one hand, in order to bring in a gold mine at Clontarf, but also now with the resources available, and they're quite substantial, be approximately 10 million in the first two phases. So we'll be moving forward rapidly with that, both to bring Clontarf forward as a mine, and also to have coming up over the horizon some of the other very promising and very good targets that we have both around Clontarf and elsewhere in the Longford Down Massif. So it's a whole new impetus, a whole new rate of progress. But we have now, with the backing of major joint venture partner, of course, the finance, the technical expertise, and the organizational ability and so on, to start moving forward in a way that indeed the project deserves. We've made the discovery and taken many years over it, but it's a pretty good discovery to make when you have a 40-mile gold trend. And between ourselves and our new partners, of course, we have 100% of it. and we will be able to retain over 40% on each of the projects as it comes forward. So it's a very exciting and tremendous situation for the company.
From a point of view of, first of all, I would like to say congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
This is a huge step, obviously. And from the point of view of the next steps, which is obviously what people are going to be thinking about, no sooner has one step been done, but the next are now in debate. The joint venture plan is obviously already written, as you've said, I think. Then you've got the Irish government and the Northern Irish government to rubber stamp it. What sort of timescales do you think that we're going to be looking at for those things?
First, could I say, if I may, that you're very kind and thank you for the congratulations. But in actual fact, there are a lot of other people involved, managing director, Maureen Jones, the board members, and all the technical people, and indeed many other people who made this all possible. So appreciate their support and what they've put into it as well. But you're quite right. We've some government formalities to go through. They're not just entirely formalities. They have to signify their consent, and I think it's fair to say that from the point of view of our joint venture partner coming in, it's a very major company with very major backing to it. So quite sure this will be very acceptable to both governments. And then we ourselves, our management, we do have a track record, of course, of successfully bringing in a mine in Ireland. And that mine, together with the adjacent mine, which was developed at Lisheen, and of course the long-standing Tara mine, we're now quoted in textbooks as examples of modern mines with environmentally acceptable procedures, and yet at the same time financially and technically successful mines. So again, we have very strong arguments to the government for accepting this joint venture. And as I say, quite a lot of this has already been agreed, and we would expect over the coming very short period that the regulatory permissions will be granted to us. So we will, as you rightly say, we've already been doing some of the planning for what will be a very major venture. We'll obviously do it in a very, as it were, methodical, measured sort of manner with our good colleagues in the joint venture. So it'll be a question of gradually accelerating the process, which we've already initiated in building up resource. But now, of course, it'll be greatly magnified. Instead of having, shall we say, one rig working, you'll have 2, 3, 4 rigs working. Instead of it being in one area, there'll be several areas to be looked at. But the main emphasis, the primary aim of Project Inish, as we call it, is the development of a gold mine at Clontippet.
Just, I'm going to push you on it because a lot of people are asking me, how long do you think it's going to take to get Northern Ireland and Irish Republic approval?
Inevitably, these things take time. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. But on the other hand, from when we started, we had this idea that this, in actual fact, could, if we were very lucky, we didn't have no idea it was going to be as big as it's turned out to be. But nonetheless, we had the idea, and remember, we've brought in a mine before in Ireland, so we've been around the course, as it were, of what was necessary. So from the very beginning, from taking the first soil samples, we always would, for example, go and talk with the local farmer or landowner, get his permission, work with them. If we wanted to put in a drill hole or dig a trench or something like that, again, we would talk beforehand with them. If it suited them for us to do it immediately, obviously we'd go ahead immediately. If he said, well, I have silage or crops or whatever in my land, we would say, well, when are you going to cut the silage or the crops? And would it be all right if we came in after that? So we have from the beginning worked on the basis that if we were very lucky, we'll be in a situation in which we will be coming back to maybe some of these same people and saying, look, we're going ahead with a mine. And I think the general attitude that we have in the local areas, or ever visit there yourself, and you'll be very welcome to do so, is a very positive attitude towards us. They know us. They know that we'll do things as well as we possibly can, which we will. And certainly in mine always brings in employment, of course, but it's particularly welcome in a regional border area. A lot of Ireland has done very well, but that's tended to be the bigger cities and so on. So we're looking forward to it, and of course looking forward to it not just as a one-off, but as the first of a series of mines. And again, that makes it additionally important that we do it right from the very beginning, and that's certainly what we're trying to do. But it will take time, certainly.
So from the point of view of moving forward, obviously we need these approvals. When do you envisage that the drill will start turning on these things?
Oh, well, the approvals, we already remember hold the licenses. And so we'll continue. We'll be drilling on the 3rd of January. We'll be drilling, so we're starting right away. It's a question of building it up into a fairly massive program. So it'll be starting on 4th of January. Rig will be working, first rig.
That's effectively with the joint venture.
Well, effectively, that will be with the joint venture, because obviously we're not going to do something without, and indeed for the last 6 months or longer have obviously been working together, as it were, even though we don't have a formal joint venture. So we'll look forward to continuing and indeed expanding that immediately. But we'll start in January, start work.
So nothing's going to be held up by waiting for the Northern Ireland and Irish approval?
Not at all, no. The actual formalities of the joint venture will be held up. We can't work under the direct auspices of the joint venture as such until the government has approved them. But we already obviously have the licenses as CGNR or whatever, a subsidiary of CGNR, and are therefore entitled to start the work or continue the work, I really should say.
Yeah, continue doing what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great news then.
Yeah.
So from January the 1st,
no delay period. No.
Digging some holes and drilling some holes. And
absolutely. Looking forward to it.
And if that's the case, and obviously looking for those leprechauns as well, because that's important. How long do you think it's going to take to get to 1 million ounces?
That'll depend on the way we approach it. We could move very quickly towards it if the object simply is to get 1 million ounces. But I mean, there's a far bigger picture than that. Are you talking about 1 million ounces down to 200 meters in the area of Clontibbret? Because we're looking in that area alone, as I've mentioned, about 10 million, and I'll have to go in a moment, I'm sorry, at about 10 million ounces. So there are a number of ways which you could go about it. We know it extends on either side. We know it extends to depth. So, but the details of those plans will be obviously working out with our good colleagues, but it's going to be an exciting time.
Professor Conroy of Conroy Gold and Natural Resources, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.